I know. Are you guys sick of me yet? We're gonna just do a few more of these tonight. I'm fixing my camera a little bit because it seemed a little too high. Um, do you wonder what's going on in the state of Texas? Yeah, me too. So we decided to call Emily Ramshaw. Emily started this incredible organization called the 19th. She'll tell us a little more about it because she's about to join us. And hey, Emily, are you there? She's going to be here any minute, and she's going to give us the lowdown on the Lone Star State. And hi, Emily, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great, Katie. How are you?
I'm fine. I've been having so much fun just talking to a lot of smart people like you, Emily, and kind of getting a little bit of the skinny on various swing states and what's happening. There's been a lot of interest in Texas from my followers. And I know I interviewed Beto O'Rourke this weekend, and he seemed pretty bullish on the prospect of Texas turning blue. And I'm just curious what you're seeing, Emily. You're in Austin right now, and then we can talk briefly about the 19th because I want people to know what a cool thing you're doing in journalism. But tell us the latest from Texas.
Sure. I mean, so I've been in Texas for 18 years, and I would say this is the closest to a truly competitive state we have ever seen politically. For years, people have been talking about sort of Texas getting more purple and more purple. And for the first time, truly, in the 18 years I've been here, do I think that Texas actually has a shot? So a little bit, some notes on sort of where we think things could be headed. Obviously, turnout is looking extraordinarily good. We've had 9.7 million early votes in Texas. That's more than the entire 2016 turnout combined. So that's pretty extraordinary. 57% of registered voters voted early, these are just, absolutely unheard of numbers in the state of Texas. So that sort of, bodes well, I think, for a younger turnout, for Latino turnout, for people who are deeply engaged this time around. So lots of things, obviously, Texas is in play for Biden, which is interesting. I think probably Trump will still eke it out in Texas, a very conservative state historically. But the fact that there's even conversation about that is pretty newsworthy. It's possible that Democrats are targeting 10 key congressional districts in Texas. You could see some movement there. So some key candidates we could talk about. It's possible that the state house could flip to the Democrats, which would again be, the first time in more than 2 decades that has happened. So there's a lot of interesting momentum in Texas. I think we'll still probably swing Republican, but there's going to be a lot of crossover voting, and I think some really interesting results tonight.
And when do you think we'll know the results? I think Beto was saying that pretty early that you guys should know kind of which way Texas is going tonight.
I think that is pretty likely. I mean, this is a state where early voting went on for 3 weeks, which was also unprecedented. Those votes are already being tabulated. So I think that there's, once the polls close this evening, we'll know early voting totals, within the first hour or so. We should have a pretty clear semblance of where things are headed. In many of the big counties, Harris County, which is where Houston is notoriously slow. So obviously that's a big Democratic stronghold for a lot of voters. So, I think we're going to have some pretty clear indication within the first couple of hours this evening.
And Emily, how has the electorate shifted or changed since 2016? What kind of things have we seen at play? Are you all experiencing the same kind of departure of college-educated white suburban women away from the president and towards the Democratic Party?
Yeah, so there's a combination of factors here, with the biggest being probably that the suburbs in Texas have gotten increasingly purple, have gotten increasingly demographically diverse, have gotten more blue. And so I think you're seeing, as the urban cores that are traditionally Democratic spread out into the exurbs, further and further, you see the greater purpling of this state. But I think you also are seeing, beyond the sort of demographic shifts, the how young this state is becoming, how Hispanic this state is becoming. You are seeing the same factors with, white, historically conservative women in the suburbs who are saying basically, enough is enough this time around, and that they are ready to make a change. So lots of factors demographically at play.
And what about the Latino vote? And I hesitate to call it the Latino vote because it's a diverse group of people. It's not necessarily monolithic. But having said that, what is that vote looking like in the state of Texas?
Very young and very democratic. I mean, this is, you're smart to not obviously lump all voters together, but Texas is not like Florida where there is far more sort of political diversity among Latino voters. In Texas, they do tend to skew Democratic. In South Texas, that those are sort of really Democratic strongholds for a long time in Texas, and those are largely Latino populations there. So, and also, the age diversity. I mean, the Latinos skew really young in Texas, and obviously we know that younger voters skew Democratic.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about Beto's efforts for voter turnout in the state of Texas. How much of an impact is that having?
There has been, again, it's sort of hard to tell whether what we'll see by the end of the day today with, the sort of general election turnout, election day turnout, but clearly there have been extraordinary efforts this time, get out the vote efforts this time. These early voting totals have been through the roof, like really incomparable. So I think the question is, did everybody vote early, and election day turnout will end up being, markedly lower? My parents are both poll workers, and I've heard from them anecdotally today. My dad said he saw like 5 people vote today at normally like a pretty hefty voter turnout site. So I'd be curious to see what that ends up looking like at the end of the day.
And what about incidents of intimidation or voter suppression? Have you heard reports about that? Because I know there was something with Greg Abbott getting rid of some of the drop boxes, I guess, or he did something that that people were upset about. Give us a on that?
Yeah, sure. So it sort of went both ways. Obviously, Greg Abbott faced a lot of criticism for decisions to really sort of reduce the number of drop boxes for mail-in ballots. And so that got Democrats pretty up in arms. At the same time, he's the same person who extended early voting from the normal, 10-day to 2-week period to a solid 3 weeks. And, as we've seen in Texas, turnout has been extraordinary. So I think, look, there have been some incidents around intimidation. The story you probably saw of the Biden-Harris bus that was on I-35 that was surrounded by Trump SUVs. There have been some incidents like that, but so far today we haven't heard anything bordering on that kind of drama at the polls. All we heard about was sort of some technical glitches, some late starts, but things have seemed pretty calm, honestly, across the country.
So what time do you think we'll know about Texas and Texas and the vote in Texas?
So we're on Central Time here in Texas. So, generally speaking, it's too close to call until at least 9 or 10 p.m. Central Time, so 11 p.m. Eastern Time. I think, again, it all sort of depends on what the margins are like. If it's a squeaker, it'll be like every other state where this goes into the morning or the days to come. There have been a lot of election nights where I'm sitting at my desk until 3 and 4 in the morning the next day. So everybody just needs to sort of keep their powder dry, get some rest, and know that we need to be in this for the long haul.
And a lot of people were wondering if, in fact, Joe Biden wins the presidency, what role Beto O'Rourke might play in a potential Biden administration. Do you think he's going to run for governor? He was pretty cagey with me when I asked him about that, but clearly the guy has a very bright political future.
There are a lot of folks with bright political futures in Texas. It could be Beto. I would not be surprised. I don't think he's done. We've got, Julian Castro and Joaquin Castro, who are both really big players. There's sort of a whole crop, a next generation of Democrats who have been sort of biding their time and waiting their turn. And I think the closer that we see elections like this get, the more their eyes get bigger and they, think about what their opportunities might be. So Beto has been, was historically cagey with us on this too. If you can't get the answer out of him, probably nobody can.
And before we go, Emily, tell everyone what you're doing with the night, because I want them to know about this really cool organization, really, that you're starting, and where you came from and why you saw a need for it. And
sure. Yeah.
I'm going to take a sip of my Fresca to all the chocolate chip cookies that I've been eating today.
I love it. That's great. Yes, we started in August. We launched the 19th, which is a nonprofit newsroom at the intersection of gender, politics, and policy. And so what that means for us on election night is we are, super closely following all of the races where gender is in many ways on the ballot, from the presidency to a whole bunch of really fascinating U.S. Senate races, congressional races where women are running for governor, who could be, the first female governor in those states. So we're following really closely a whole bunch of transgender candidates who are running. And so you can check us out at 19thnews.org, but really excited to be sort of part of the national dialogue around, changing the narrative, changing the stories we tell about and for women.
Sarah McBride is running in Delaware, and she was a key person to help me with my Gender Revolution documentary I did years back. And I think she's favored to win her race as far as I can tell, but it's hard to keep up with everybody. But you're really taking a look and making sure that often marginalized candidates or candidates that aren't getting as much attention as others are really being focused on as well.
Exactly. And thank you for being an evangelist for what we're doing. So, but yes, there's lots of cool stuff that we're going to be keeping track of through the night. So we would love it if you tune in. Katie, are you going to be on the air all night? How are you going to do this?
Well, I'm just doing a couple more interviews. Mike Murphy was on earlier. He was a big hit because he's really funny. And, Mike is a Republican consultant, but he's been working to turn Florida blue with campaign he calls Orange Crush. He's one of these Republicans who is supporting Joe Biden, as we've seen a lot of that happening in this cycle. So I'm going to interview him, Brian Goldsmith, who I used to do a podcast with, and a few other people before the night's over. I'm kind of running around going back and forth to the television. And my husband, John, said he's not going to watch until 9 o'clock. He said he just doesn't think it's healthy because I think a lot of people are feeling stressed out about this election and what's going to happen. So I'm going to be kind of in and out on Instagram. It's a really fun way to talk to people. And I don't know, it's more casual. It's a little, more relaxed. And it's just also you can have longer conversations with people. You don't have to be like, wrap it up.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. But Emily, thank you so much. And will you let me know if you hear anything about Texas that I can share on my social media channels with all my followers so we can give them the inside scoop.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me. Good luck. Hang in there. It's going to be a long night, day, week. We'll see.
Well, we'll see, because Mike Murphy doesn't think so. But gosh, who knows? And we should encourage everyone, if their polls haven't closed, that they still can get out and vote. That's super important.
Absolutely. Do it. You still have time in some states.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Emily. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.